I never imagined a poor boy could teach me life-changing lessons after I failed every test. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. My heart raced, pounding in my chest like a trapped animal. The whispers followed me, the stares pierced through my skin. I felt small and ashamed. There he was, Alex, a boy with torn shoes and a smile that lit up those dull hallways. He didn't fit in. Kids laughed at him, but he walked tall, like he owned the world with just a few coins in his pocket. I was standing in the middle of my own chaos, drowning in the pressure of exams, feeling like a failure. My hands trembled as I clutched my notebooks, filled with scribbles, calculations that never added up. I felt like I was slipping away, every paper a reminder of my shortcomings. I had parents who believed in me. I had friends who rallied behind me, offering me support that now felt heavy. The expectations loomed over me like storm clouds, threatening to burst. Yet here was Alex. He didn't need fancy books or a well-stocked library. He was resourceful, clever in ways that made my heart ache. He took classes in an old, run-down building that smelled of dust and old chalk, yet somehow, it was alive with possibilities like I had never seen before. One day, sitting alone on the crumbling steps of the school, I watched as Alex played with a group of kids. He found joy in the simplest things, a pebble turned into a game, laughter echoing through the alley. I wanted that. I wanted to feel that joy, but instead, I felt hollow. What did he know that I didn't? What secret did he hold? But then, everything changed. One afternoon, he approached me. His eyes sparkled, a mix of hope and mischief. "Why do you look so sad?" he asked, genuinely curious. I was startled. I poured out my fears, my failures, and there had ways in understanding, a connection. Maybe he could help. Maybe he could teach me something unique. The thought ignited a flicker of hope within me. Suddenly, the walls around me began to shift. I could see colors bright and vivid. My heart leaped as Alex offered to help me prepare for the next exam in his own way, the unfiltered, raw way of learning. I thought about the bond we could form, the lessons I might uncover. But as we began this journey, shadows loomed. I caught glimpses of ash in his smile, hints of secrets buried deep within him. Sometimes, he would drift off, staring into distance, eyes clouded like a storm brewing. What haunted him? Did he carry burdens heavier than mine? I was about to unravel the layers of our lives, the questions burning on the edges of my mind, when a sudden shout pierced the air. A boy from the group was running towards us, panic written all over his face. My heart sank. There's trouble. What kind of trouble? My mind raced as I tightened my grip on Alex's arm. I could feel the chill of fear crawling up my spine. The world around us trembled with uncertainty. And at that moment, I knew nothing would ever be the same again. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash the like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The tension in the air was palpable as I looked into Alex's eyes. He seemed taken aback for a split second, the usual playfulness in his demeanor evaporating. The boy who ran toward us, Matty, was breathless, panic etched into his face. "There's a fight near the old playground," he stammered, his words tumbled out like stones. "They're saying it's serious this time. You have to come." I exchanged a glance with Alex, uncertainty swirling in my chest. The old playground had always been a place of laughter and childhood memories, now twisted into the backdrop of chaos. We had to got here, was no question about it. Yet, a knot tightened in my stomach. I feared what this turn of events would reveal, not only about our peers but about the fragile nature of our newfound connection. As we raced towards the playground, the air thickened with tension, each beat of my heart pounding louder than the last. The murmur of a growing crowd filled my ears, mingled with harsh shouts that sliced through the serene afternoon sky. Alex moved ahead, leading the charge, his long strides purposeful yet almost instinctual. I had always admired how he refused to back down, how he thrived in the most trying situations. But with each step closer, my unease escalated. The closer we got to the commotion, the more vivid the details became, the warmth of the sun starting to fade, the darkening sky reflecting the turmoil I felt inside. I fell into step behind Alex, eyes darting, searching for something to grasp onto, a glimmer of hope amidst the chaos. When we arrived, the scene was just as chaotic as I feared. A few older boys were in a heated argument, fists raised and faces twisted in anger. The crowd circled around them, torn between excitement and trepidation. My heart sank. Was this what kids like Alex had to contend with? "Let's break it up," Alex said, an unexpected firmness in his voice. I could hardly believe how quickly he stood at the front lines, his eyes fierce. I hesitated, doubts swirling in my mind. I was scared of what would happen next, scared that we would get swept away in the tide of violence and rage, but Alex turned back, almost as if sensing my hesitation. "We have to do something. They need to know they can choose differently," he said, his voice resonating with a strength I hadn't heard before. "This is our chance to show them there's another way." With his encouragement igniting a flicker of resolve within me, I stepped forward. Together, we moved toward the fray, a determined force against the storm. The crowd parted, and we stood there, faces steady as we confronted those who let anger drive their fists. "Stop!" Alex called out, his voice strong and unwavering. "This isn't the way." For a moment, everything fell silent, even the wind seemed to hold its breath. The fighters paused, confusion creeping across their faces, and the crowd hesitated. My heart raced as I joined Alex, our united front, an unspoken pledge that we refused to let fear dictate our world. But then, just as clarity appeared on the horizon, a provocative taunt broke the spell. One of the larger boys sneered at us, the mocking laughter rippling through the air, spurring his companions on. "And what could you two possibly know about fighting?" As they turned their fists toward us, a chill ran down my spine. That knot of fear tightened. I was standing at the brink of the abyss. Just then, a little girl, no older than 7, stepped forward from the edge of the crowd. Clutching a tattered teddy bear to her chest, she spoke with the innocence of youth, piercing through the thick tension that gripped the atmosphere. "Don't you see? There's enough fighting everywhere else. Why do it here?" The words fell soft yet heavy, resonating like a bell in the stillness rimming the playground. Unexpected kindness amid the chaos. For a moment, even the fighters hesitated, the fire in their eyes dimming just slightly. But that flicker of hope dashed when the larger boy turned away from us and directed his animosity towards the girl instead. He shoved her aside, knocking her to the ground. My heart lurched. "Hey! You can't just do that!" I shouted, my voice breaking as I rushed to her side. Alex was beside me in a heartbeat, anger flooding his features. It was a confrontation we never anticipated, and as I knelt beside the bruised little girl, a wave of sadness crashed over me. In that moment, it was crystal clear, this was not just about us. It was about all of us, entangled in a web of expectations and despair, fighting battles far beyond our understanding. As I helped her up, I felt Alex's hand settle firmly on my shoulder, solid and reassuring. But the weight of everything, the endless cycle of cruelty and confusion surrounding us, felt like it might crush me. "Stay close," he whispered, sensing my wavering resolve. We approached the boys once more, prepared to challenge not just their actions but the pervasive shadows lurking behind their bravado. But then, out of nowhere, a loud crash echoed from behind, and someone shouted, "Run!" The ground trembled beneath us, and it felt like the very earth was shifting, carrying us toward the unknown. My heart pounded in my chest, feeling the tremors of fear resonating deep within. What was happening now? As I turned to follow Alex, the chaos swallowed us whole, and I realized that the fight for not just our own worth, but for the very soul of our community, was just beginning. And as fear and uncertainty spiraled around us, I couldn't shake the feeling that something far greater was at stake than our immediate struggle. The chaos unfolded like a dark cloud, encircling us as I gripped the little girl's hand. Her wide, trusting eyes mirrored my own confusion, the fleeting glimpse of hope snuffed out by the echoes of fear. I wanted nothing more than to shield her from the impending storm, yet I felt helpless, staring into the faces of the boys who thrived on rage. Alex moved closer, his jaw set, eyes scanning the growing crowd. "We need to get her out of here," he murmured, urgency in his tone. I nodded, still holding onto the fragile girl's hand, but my gaze remained fixed on the deeper abyss spiraling around us. "Why are they fighting?" the girl whimpered, her voice trembling. I wished I had an answer. "Sometimes people don't know how to handle their anger," I replied, forcing a courage I didn't quite feel. "But we can show them it doesn't have to be that way." With every word, I felt the weight of responsibility. The world felt so big, and we were just two kids trying to navigate its complexities. In that moment, I glimpsed the essence of what Alex had believed all along: community was our strength, and we could find solace in each other even amidst the darkest trials. Behind us, the commotion escalated. A booming voice cut through our moment. "Who does this kid think he is?" One of the larger boys laughed tauntingly, stepping forward with fists clenched, threatening our fragile bubble of defiance. Before I could react, a sudden spark of bravery ignited within me. You think this makes you strong?" I shouted, surprising myself as the words rushed out. "What if you turned that anger into something good? You're capable of so much more." The boy's laughter faltered, confusion flickering across his face as the crowd began murmuring. It was a small shift, but it was a shift nonetheless. My heart raced, buoyed by an inkling of hope. "Perhaps we could make them listen." Just then, a voice erupted from the back of the gathering. "Why don't you show us instead of talking about it?" A tall girl I recognized from school stepped forward, her presence commanding yet graceful. What kind of leader uses their fists rather than their words? For a fleeting moment, the atmosphere shifted again. The boy who had once been set on violence now faced a wave of confused students, each evaluating what it meant to stand up for something other than bravado. I could see the hesitance seep into their tough exteriors, but it was still too fragile, midway between understanding and latent aggression. Before I could articulate another thought, the ground crackled beneath us again. The tremors had morphed into a rush of panic that spread through the crowd like wildfire. "Get out of here!" someone shouted out, sending the throng into a frenzy. I felt the little girl tug at my sleeve in fright, and Alex grabbed my arm tightly. "We need to go now," but as we attempted to move, I realized the circle was closing in, an encasing fist of humanity drawn to instinct, a collective fear that threatened to crush anything resembling hope. "We can't leave them," I protested, torn between safety and the need to fight for those unwilling to fight for themselves. "We're not making a change if we get caught in this chaos," Alex urged, pulling me away from the fray. I felt torn, a raw conflict clashing within me. They needed to see that it was more than petty squabbles, that it transcended immediate conflicts. It was about something deep, a longing for understanding, for community. "Please," the girl whimpered again, her voice barely above a whisper. In that moment, I realized she was right. We were becoming part of the problem if we didn't at least try to guide them toward compassion. But how? Suddenly, I spotted a glimmer of clarity amidst the storm. A local community center down the street, typically painted in vibrant colors, now shrouded in shadow as the sun began its descent. My heart raced as the memory of the art programs, of the after-school gatherings, of laughter and creativity flooded my mind. It was a space where kids had come to turn their turmoil into something meaningful. "Let's go there!" I exclaimed, my voice ringing with newfound certainty. "We can bring them together. We can show them a different way." With Alex beside me, we made our way through the cluster of bodies, urging and encouraging the hesitant souls surrounding us to rise against their fears and follow. This community center can't just be a part of the background. You can take back our playground and turn it into a place for healing. The older boys glanced at each other, uncertain, intrigued, and the atmosphere shifted again, if only slightly. But before I could savor the moment, the sky split open, releasing a wave of rain that doused the chaos. Cold, sudden, and consuming. Shouts of surprise echoed as people scrambled for shelter. My heart sank. The storm seemed a perfect metaphor for everything we were caught in. I turned to Alex, desperation creeping back in. What now? As the rain poured and emotions surged, something within me shifted. I realized this was the moment that would define us: to act or fall back into the shadows. Just then an ultimatum from one of the fighters pierced through the din: either fight or leave. But before Alex could respond, a chilling thought struck me: what if this chaos not only disrupted our efforts but fractured something more fundamental? Just as that realization sunk in, I caught a glimpse of the little girl pulling away from my grasp, confusion swimming in her eyes. "No!" I shouted, reaching out just in time to see her slip into the growing crowd. Panic surged through me as I realized I might lose the very essence of our hope. Would she be pulled into a cycle of anger and retribution that felt inescapable? As the rain enveloped the scene, flooding my senses, I understood that our endeavor was just beginning. The question lingered: would I be able to pull her back, not just from the crowd, but from a future marred by the very struggles we were trying to extinguish? And with that uncertainty, with the storm raging on above, I felt that we were only on the precipice of something even more profound, something that would test the very fabric of who we were. The rain poured heavily, blurring the world around me. Each drop felt like a reminder of my helplessness, mingling with the rising tide of fear that surged within me. I strained against the crowd, searching wildly for the little girl, whose small frame was lost in the chaos. Did she understand how important it was to stay together? The thought of her slipping away, I could hardly bear it. Where did she go? I gasped, throat tightening as panic set in. We can't lose her, Alex. But Alex was already moving, shoulder to shoulder with the throng of confused faces. Well, find her. Just stick close. He shouted back over the din. The crowd surged, a collective body influenced by instinct and the primal fear of the storm. I fought against the current, heart racing. Every moment felt like an eternity stretched thin. In snippets, I saw flashes of anger and discord merging with vulnerability, faces contorted in rage, but also uncertainty. Maybe, just maybe, they were capable of something more than this violence. Finally, I spotted Hera. Movement caught my eye. There, just a few feet to my right, the girl was huddled close to the entrance of the community center, her figure illuminated momentarily by a flash of lightning. She looked so small and fragile, surrounded by a group of older kids who were laughing, thrown into a frenzy of bravado. My breath caught as I shouted her name, but the noise rumbled like thunder, washing over my words. Stay by the door. I shouted, knowing she could hear me, even if the chaos swallowed my voice. But as I took a step toward her, a strong grip yanked my arm back. It was the boy who had mocked me earlier, his confusion inching toward awareness amidst his bravado. What's it to you, huh? He challenged, a mixture of uncertainty and aggression in his eyes. You think you can change things with words? Sometimes words matter more than actions, I shot back, defiance flickering within me like a candle against the tempest. I could feel the desperation transforming into determination, surging within me. Our pain doesn't have to define us. Don't you want to create something better? For a brief moment, I saw the boy hesitate. His expression shifted, flickering between the response he had been conditioned to give and a pang of curiosity. Maybe you'd like that, but what about us? Before I could respond, thunder rumbled through the air, a booming reminder of nature's power. The boy's grip loosened slightly, as if he was waking from a trance. Fine, let's see what you've got. Then, in that moment, I turned toward the girl again. She was edging backward. The laughter that had once filled the air felt hollow, replaced by an ominous tension. The older kids seemed to sense the shift too, their amusement fading, leaving only uncertainty in its place. Come back. I pleaded. You're safe with us. Then, like a thread unraveling, the little girl darted toward the community center, and adrenaline pulsed through me. In a heartbeat, I was on the move, hoping to reach her before she slipped into the depths of the unknown. I glimpsed her smile emerging from the shadows, flickered like a lighthouse piercing the storm. Just before she reached the entryway, another larger boy blocked her path. What do you think you're doing? He barked, eyes narrowing. You'll get hurt out here. At that moment, everything slowed down. I needed to act. I stepped closer, willing myself to exude the strength I hadn't yet found within. She just wants to be safe, just like you. We all do. I felt Alex moving behind me, sensing the weightiness of my words. Look. I continued, voice steadying. None of us have to stand alone. We're all caught in this storm. We can either fight each other or create something better together, inside these walls. It's a choice. The boy's eyes darted from me to the girl and back again, uncertainty hovered in the air. Around us, the rest of the crowd had begun to quiet, caught between the storm's fury and the possibility of something new. Time stretched before us, each heartbeat echoing the pivotal moment that hung in the balance, but then, another flash illuminated the dynamic before us. A loud crash echoed in the distance, likely from a wreckage stirred by the storm, jolting everyone from the fragile peace that had almost settled. The boy flinched, his grip tightening around the girl. Let her go. I yelled, fear igniting anew. Suddenly, the chaotic convergence of the earlier fight re-emerged, drawing more of the crowd to the door, breathing fresh life into the aggression just as the storm raged on overhead. The tension returned, palpable and charged. "Come on," Alex urged, breaking toward the open entry of the community center. "It's now or never." But as we surged forward, a piercing scream sliced through the noise around us. I turned sharply just in time to see another girl being pushed aside as the wave of conflict surged forward. My heart sank as the truth of our situation weighed heavy upon me. We were losing control, and in that moment of chaos, something crashed down a heavy piece of signboard from the torn roof of the community center, slamming to the ground amidst frightened screams. The world shifted again, a delicate balance tipping dangerously close to upheaval.no. I shouted, the sound mingled with a profound sense of loss. All my newfound hope hung at the precipice, faced with the reality that the storm was more than physical, it was everything we as a community had to battle against, personified in that single tragic moment. As I hesitated, gazing at the wound of humanity rending itself apart again, panic set in. Would I be able to pull us back from the edge? Would this moment define us or destroy us entirely? The question hung suspended like lightning in the air, and as the rain continued to drench everything, so too did the weight of every unresolved conflict we faced. The storm raged on, an unrelenting symphony of chaos. I could feel the trembling desperation in my bones as the crowd pressed in around me, their faces blurred by the downpour. My heart pounded in my chest. The little girl, lost in the midst of it all, somehow represented the innocence we so easily forsook in moments like this. As the sound of crashing debris faded, I stood firm, desperate to make sense of the turmoil enveloping us. Why is this happening? I thought, frustration battling against the instinct to act. The collective cry of fear echoed deep within me, a reminder of how fragile our humanity could be when faced with the raw forces of nature and the darker sides of ourselves. Alex's voice broke through my thoughts. "We need to find a way to help everyone. Follow me." His tone encouraged, but the fire in his eyes mirrored the storm outside, wild and untrammeled. Wait. I called, reaching for him, but he was already moving toward the girl, his focus unyielding, as if he'd come to some revelation. I could barely process the urgency of his intention before I heard another scream erupt from the gathering. The sound birthed a new wave of fear, a chaotic ripple that swept through the crowd, manipulating their instincts. Suffocated by uncertainty, I felt panic take hold again. Eyes darted amongst the throng, searching for the little girl who now seemed lost beyond reach. Before I could run after Alex, the boy who had initially stepped in front of her re-emerged from the commotion, visibly shaken. I caught a hint of regret on his youthful face as he scanned the crowd, confusion etched into his features. "Why didn't I stop it?" he shouted out, his voice torn between anger and despair. "We could have saved her." The realization washed over him, striking a chord within my chest, a small flicker of vulnerability. For all his bravado, beneath it lay a struggle I could recognize and hold my breath for. "Hey!" I called out, approaching him slowly. "This isn't your fault. We're all trying to be brave. But bravery isn't just about fighting, it's about helping each other." The rawness of my own fear made my voice tremble, but I pressed on. "You have it in you to reach out. Remember, we're all caught up in something bigger than any one of us. There's hope in connection. Please, help me find her, help us." He nodded slowly, as if my words were pulling him out of the isolation of his internal storm. "Okay," he replied hesitantly, the fight slipping away from his posture. "Where do we start?" Before I could respond, a movement caught my eye. Alex had returned, the little girl tucked safely under his arm. Relief flooded through me, almost overpowering the surrounding anxiety. "I got her!" he shouted, breathless with exhilaration. "Come on." But the moment of joy was short-lived. As Alex made his way toward us, the crowd surged again. A wave of fear responded instinctively to his movement, pushing everyone inwards, drawn by collective anxiety. The boy and I exchanged glances, an unspoken determination renewing our resolve to navigate through this chaos together. "Let's hold on to her," I declared, my voice rising above the cacophony. "We can't let fear win." We moved as one unit now, a ragtag trio formed in the heart of a storm that sought to unmake us. The rain intensified, as if trying to drown out our small measure of hope, but the bond forged in the fires of fear felt stronger than the dark, driving wind. Each step was a testament to what we could accomplish together, no matter how much tension still ebbed and flowed in the faces around us. Finally gaining ground, we reached an enclave, partially protected from the storm. Some of the older kids had fallen into anger once more, locking eyes, brows furrowed with resentment and blame. The moment stretched as we steadied ourselves, causing even the within consequences of nature to pause before us, waiting with anticipation as we approached the threshold of connection. As the toddler clung tightly to Alex's hand, there was a moment of flicker of understanding among the older kids, a hint that perhaps they were tired of fighting and wanted something different. Just as I thought we could make this shift happen, we were jolted back into reality when the older boy from before stepped forward. "You think this is going to change anything?" he challenged, cutting through our moment of fragility. "You're just prolonging the inevitable." The words landed heavy, casting a shadow over our shared hope. I felt that familiar wave of helplessness surging to the forefront, battling against the flicker of inspiration that burns still inside me. But isn't it worth a try? What are we living for if not to take risks together? Laughter erupted in the corner, but it had turned cruel, the shadows casting deeper divides. One of the older boys leaned against a wall, grinning bitterly. "You really think kindness can change this world?" Pathetic. As those words echoed off the walls, I looked down at the little girl, her innocent eyes wide and trusting, and I thought about everything we stood to lose in that moment. It was then that the boy from earlier moved forward, standing beside me with resolve in his stance. "Maybe we are pathetic, but at least we're willing to try," he shouted, his voice resonating amidst the storm, equating to all our conflict. The energy shifted slightly, as if those shaken by his boldness paused mid-reaction. Then, a bright flash transformed the darkness around us, illuminating one crucial truth: this was a community where we either accepted our fear or chose to identify our shared humanity. But just as I thought we'd reached the threshold of a breakthrough, my phone buzzed violently at my side. A message appeared on the screen, stark and overwhelming: "We're losing power in the area. Evacuate immediately." A shudder tore through me. The implications were staggering. I grabbed Alex's sleeve, my heart racing. "We need to go," I shouted. Before it's too late, the world around us began warping again, echoing the fragile nature of everything we had just struggled against. As people moved closer to the entrance, hope seems to dissipate under the weight of uncertainty. With every passing moment, I felt the rage blend with confusion, reminding me that even a small flicker of kindness can be lost at the flash of a storm. And just like that, as the waves of chaos rose, I braced for an upheaval beyond our control, praying for even the faintest glimmer of connection to guide us through the dark. The urgency in my veins propelled me forward, dragging the small thread of hope we had woven into this suffocating chaos. "This way," I urged, gesturing towards a side alley that diverged from the thrumming crowd. Alex and the boy stayed close, and the little girl, cocooned in Alex's protective grip, seemed to radiate a fragile courage as she remained silent, trusting her saviors even in the tempest. Thunder roared above us, but my heart pounded louder than nature's fury. What if there's no way out? I thought, dread creeping in again, a persistent whisper nudging at my mind. Each step felt laborious, the rain soaking my clothes and seeping into my spirit even as the surreal reality of our mission loomed larger. Suddenly, we caught the remnants of a flicker from the inside of a small building just ahead, a small coffee shop that had once brought warmth to cold mornings. The windows, smeared with rain, hinted at familiarity in a crumbling world. The door bellowed against the wind, and for a moment, it felt as if stepping inside was an act of defiance against the storm itself. Alex glanced at me, reluctant hope flickering in his eyes. "What if we're safe in there?" he asked, his voice barely audible over the rain. I nodded. "It might give us a moment to regroup, to think." I pushed open the door with a fervent gesture, and we stepped into the dim light. The shop was a tableau of chaos, chairs were toppled over, and the air hung heavy with the scent of stale coffee and fear. Before we could take a breath, a shriek resonated from a corner. A woman, drenched and red-eyed, clung to a table, her hands shaking as she fought to contain a small boy who sobbed into her shoulder. Instantly, my heart ached for her desperate plight, the pain mirrored in her eyes as the world overwhelmed both mother and child. "Please, help!" she cried, noticing our presence. "He's terrified." Ignoring the weight of the growing storm outside, we rushed to her side. "We're here," Alex said softly, kneeling beside her, his voice warm despite the tremor of chaos lingering outside. What's his name, Liam? She gasped, tears trailing down her cheeks. He lost his father when the storm first started. The little boy looked up at us, his fear blinding against the backdrop of the storm, and for a moment, I felt the surge of connection push beyond fear and rage. Before I could voice any reassurance, he buried his face deeper into his mother's shoulder, trembling in the wake of his loss. Liam, I said gently, kneeling so I could meet his gaze. You're not alone. We're all here together. The words felt heavy on my tongue, but I pressed on. This storm has put everyone in a difficult place, and we're all searching for someone we love, just like you. Would you like to come with us? We'll find a way to safety together. He looked at me, eyes wide and earnest, as if he still battled the shadows that enveloped him. Just then, the boy who had stood with me earlier offered his hand gently, an unexpected gesture of kindness so simple yet profound. I lost someone too, he said quietly. Let's find our way together. The bond forged in shared pain wove a new thread amongst us. A momentary relief amidst the drumming storm. Before Liam could respond, a deafening crack of thunder jolted the room, causing everyone to flinch collectively. The woman clutched her son tighter, the reality of our safety momentarily quelled. I knew we had to leave this sanctuary soon. Waiting would only invite more chaos. Then, in all the noise, I noticed a stolen glance from the older boy I had encountered earlier, watching quietly from the darkened heart of the cafe. He had stepped away from our gathering, clenching his fists as though battling something unseen. Fear wrestled with the storm of emotions reflected in his face, the very foundation of bravado beginning to crack. Hey, I called out, catching him off guard. We have one more seat at the table, it's for the braver ones. He scoffed initially, anger flashing across his features, but beneath the surface, I saw a quiet turbulency, a soul in disarray yet yearning for connection. His eyes glimmered with something else as he took a hesitant step towards us, and I held my breath for what would come next. Are you really willing to let this storm be our end? I pressed further, trying to speak his language. Or are we together, hoping against hope, even when it seems most impossible? A smirk emerged, albeit reluctant, as if the corners of his mouth had practiced it 1,000 times but had never dared to express it. Let's see what you've got, then, he muttered reluctantly, his acceptance defying the looming shadows of despair. As he stepped further into the chaotic light of connection, the world outside shrieked louder, pounding against the windows in a desperate plea. I could feel the weight of every struggle in the atmosphere, and just as I began to think we could impart some small form of light beyond this chaos, the door of the coffee shop burst open. A figure dressed in black strode in amidst the swirling storm, rain cascading off the brim of his hat. The moment hung suspended in time, and dread washed over me as I recognized the silhouette. The figure's eyes locked onto mine and, with unwavering intensity, he stepped forward, breathless. I've been looking for you, he said, his voice gravelly yet undeniably familiar. My heart dropped, scrambling to grasp who it was. The chaos around me faded momentarily, my breath caught in my throat. Every hopeful moment shared sparked dangerously against the growing tension as the flickers of my past threatened to override everything I thought possible. Who are you? I managed, though my soul resonated with an understanding I had desperately tried to escape. Mason, he replied simply, and the name echoed, threatening to pull everything I had tried to mend back into the storm. The shop felt like it was shrinking, the air thick with unspoken words and the reality of Mason's presence. The moment hung like a delicate spider's web, quivering under the weight of unacknowledged choices and lost connections. Panic ignited in my chest, clashing with the flickers of hope we had managed to nurture, filling the space where courage sought to thrive. Why are you here? I questioned, my voice barely louder than the whisper of the wind that still howled outside. The boy, now visibly trembling, was pressed against his mother, confusion splayed across his young face. I have been looking for you, Mason repeated, his voice steady yet trembling with significance. His eyes darted towards the small group we had formed. We need to move. It's not safe here. The woman with Liam glanced from Mason to me, her expression mixing worry and confusion. You know him? She asked hesitantly, her body still wrapped around her child, who was fighting back his tears. Not really, I replied, caught in a riptide of memories colliding with my present. But he's someone from my past. The door rattled against the relentless wind, sending an involuntary shiver down my spine. I was still grappling with the implications, the memories of laughter, tough lessons, and an irreversible fork in the road that had led us both to this moment of chaos. But that magic of connection, the small flame ignited in this decaying cave, felt delicate against the possibility of the past turning toxic. Look, We don't have time for this right now, Mason urged, a sense of urgency edging his voice. You don't understand what's coming. If you stay here, more than the storm will come crashing down on us. What does that mean? My heart leaped at the fear that gripped my soul. Dread crackled through the air like electricity, loud and unavoidable. He opened his mouth, but at that moment, the lights flickered violently before plunging us all into darkness. Gasps echoed as I instinctively reached for Alex and the little boy, anchoring them amidst the confusion. I wanted to shield them, to keep hope alive while shadows danced at the corners of my mind. The darkness felt alive, swirling us into its depths. Fear spurred adrenaline to replace any remnants of hesitation, and I heard Mason's voice in the blackness, slicing through the thrum of uncertainty. Follow my voice. We have a chance to escape. Now. We stumbled together towards him, boosted by instinct and the promise of potential safety. Each heartbeat echoed in my ears as we navigated through the pitch-black cafe, the silhouettes of mangled furniture looming like ghosts of our former lives. Just as we reached the door, the lights flickered back on and I found myself face to face with the figure from my past, so much closer now. A jumble of emotions overwhelmed me like the storm outside. Mason was no longer the distant memory wrapped in a veil of nostalgia. He was real, raw, and holding space for every unspoken truth. What's really happening? I demanded, staring hard into his eyes, desperate to crack the code of his intentions. What do you want with me? He faltered for a moment, his bravado shaken by the depth of despair glaring back at him from my gaze. I'm here because the words got caught, tangled in regret and unresolved tension of years unspent. Because I didn't know what I was losing when I lost you. Just as my heart twisted in response, a loud crack erupted outside, startling us again. The rain hammered against the windows, but what gripped my gut was the urgency thrumming in Mason's words. Every piece of my soul screamed to understand, yet the danger outside pulsed a warning rhythm in my ears. As the others huddled close, with Liam now peering from behind his mother, a fleeting moment of connection flickered once more, warm against the chilling chaos that threatened to consume us all. It gave me a fragile strength, an inkling of purpose amidst the turmoil. Then, in that crucial moment of confrontation where hope and pain churned together, Mason's gaze deepened with an intensity that felt both familiar and foreign. There's something I need you to. No, he whispered urgently, as though sharing a secret that could change the course of everything. Just tell me. I insisted, half a plea and half an order. Everything is different now. There are people out there who know you're alive. They're searching for you. Before I could process his revelation, the door burst open once more, and the wild roar of the storm chased in relentless shadows. Figures moved in the darkness, shrouded by the rain and chaos, and I barely comprehended the magnitude of Mason's words. With fear creeping in on all sides, I took hold of Alex's hand, grounding myself amidst the storm raging in every direction. Everything in my mind shattered like glass, nothing truly making sense, yet clarity emerged, the very core of survival wrapped in the bonds we formed in the face of despair. In that helpless void of choices trembling in the air, the possibility of collision between the despair of the past and the stakes of the present filled the space around us. The door behind me was the only escape, but uncertainty loomed like a thunderstorm. Then, amidst the disarray, I caught a glimpse of the older boy, the one who had smirked mere moments before, standing rooted in place, arms crossed defiantly against the emerging chaos. Kindness and courage twinkled in his eyes, yet confusion clouded his resolve. Are we running or not? He called, voice unwavering even in the tempest. In that heartbeat of hesitation, realization struck a match in my heart. Here was our chance, here was our fight. And yet, unknown to me, everything that had unfolded had irrevocably chained my fate to Mason's, to the truth that I might have never wanted to face, the reason behind the shadows lurking just out of sight. Let's go! I shouted over the thunder, knowing deep within that every choice ahead might kindle hope or invite ruin, but certainty could not be our companion anymore. We had to leap, to cling desperately to the wild and chaotic fabric of the moment. One step forward led to the unknown, further beyond my grasp, stepping into a web spun with fears and unspoken truths, leaving all that I believed behind. My heart hammered against my chest as we tumbled through the door, the storm whispering warnings behind us. The rain lashed down, creating a symphony of sound that mirrored the chaos swirling in my mind. I glanced back at Mason one last time, my pulse quickening with the fear of separating from the only bridge I had to my past. Stay close. Mason shouted, guiding us away from the shelter of the cafe and into the swirling deluge. The wind howled as if challenging us to take one step further into the embrace of uncertainty. The world felt like it was tearing itself apart, and yet, in that moment, it was the fear of losing Mason again that sent icy fingers around my heart. Liam's mother clutched her son tightly, her breath coming in quick bursts of anxiety. "What do you mean they're looking for her?" she implored Mason, desperation clawing at her every word. Mason met her gaze, the weight of his secrets pressing heavily upon him. "They know she's alive," he replied, voice steady despite the raging tempest. "They think she possesses something that can change everything." "Change what?" The question fell from my lips before I could stop it, the truth feeling more elusive than the raindrops dancing in front of me. Mason shook his head, his brows knitted with urgency. "I can't explain it all now. Just trust me. The longer we stay exposed, the greater the risk of losing everything." We pushed on through the sheets of rain, each step pulling me deeper into shadows I had thought long buried. The streets blurred under the downpour, and as I stumbled, I felt Alex's small hand slip from mine. Panic coursed through me, but before I could spin around, I heard the boy's voice cutting through the storm, sharp and clear. "Over here." He was helping Mason steer us into a narrow alleyway, where the crumbling brick walls offered a temporary refuge from the onslaught of nature's fury. As we huddled against the cold, damp walls, I took stock of our makeshift group. When our eyes met, an unexpected flicker of solidarity crossed between us. In that fleeting moment, I realized that we were all bound by a singular thread woven through crisis, connected by the communal weight of survival. "Can you please just tell me what's really happening?" I pleaded with Mason, my voice cracking as exhaustion overwhelmed me. I could no longer fathom how the pieces of my life had been scattered, and I needed to know how to put them back together. He hesitated, the flicker of something unsaid reflecting in his gaze. "There are people who believe you are the key to something powerful, something they want to control. They fear what you might uncover, and so they want to erase you completely." A chill washed over me, mingling with the cold rain seeping through my clothes. I struggled to process his words, piecing together this strange, sinister puzzle. "Powerful? I don't have anything. In just me, exactly." His voice softened, carrying a weight of conviction that swept through me like a bomb. "You're more than you realize. You hold pieces of the past that they want to keep buried. You have to trust me, I promise. I'm here to protect you." The desperation in his voice ignited something deep within me, a flicker of resilience battling against the encroaching darkness. But as the realization crashed upon me like the storm we were fleeing, it was coupled with an unsettling sense of vulnerability. I wasn't prepared for this fight. Suddenly, Liam's mother spoke up, her voice trembling but firm. "What about the rest of us?" The directness of her question cast a spotlight on the gravity of our reality. "What happens if they find us? If they come for her?" Mason glanced around, the fear in his eyes highlighting the uncertainty we all harbored. "We'll protect you, and we'll find somewhere safe. But we have to move now. Staying still is too dangerous." As we steeled ourselves, doubt settled heavily in my chest. Yet there was a small seed of hope, lodged firmly next to the dread. The recognition of shared humanity and unexpected kindness hung in the air like a fragile thread holding us tightly together. We emerged from our shelter into the rain once more, moving quickly down the narrow alleyways, the shadows merging with the flickering street lights as if casting spells of uncertainty upon us. When we reached a clearing at the end of the alley, the sound of sirens echoed distantly. My breath caught as I spotted figures moving in the distance, flashing lights illuminating bodies that danced like phantoms across my vision. Mason turned to me, eyes wide with urgency. "We need to split up. It'll confuse them." My heart raced at the thought of being parted from him again. "What do you mean? We can't just leave each other. You said you're here to protect me." "Trust me," he said, searching my eyes for understanding. "I'll find you. Just stay alive. No matter what happens." With that, he turned and melted into the shadows, leaving me raw and exposed under an unforgiving sky. An ache blossomed in my chest, a desperation now weaving through my veins. I could feel the weight of each decision crashing down, but in that moment, a single thought blossomed. Who am I, really, if not for the people I love? In an instant, we were faced with the choice that couldn't be taken back. As I snapped back to reality, I saw Alex's terrified eyes, a mirror to my own uncertainty. A sudden rumble of thunder followed by an electric flash lit up the clearing, illuminating ominous shadows where danger surely lurked, and then, catching my breath, I realized the impossibly a figure looming in the distance, framed against the flickering streetlights. A face I knew well, one that should have been a ghost of a memory now standing there, vibrant and real, a life that whispered danger into the chaos of the storm. Mason. I choked out, my heart clenching as the reality of the moment consumed me. Yet as his eyes locked onto mine, a new and terrifying realization crashed over me. The past wasn't merely haunting me, it was here, woven into the very fabric of my current existence, demanding to be faced. The world blurred into a whirl of rain and shadows as my heart raced with panic. The figure standing there, propped against the glimmer of sodden streetlight, sent spikes of recognition through me. It was too surreal, almost cruel. It felt like a twist in an unwritten narrative, where past and present collided like opposing forces destined for destruction. Mason. I called again, struggling against the tide of fear that surged within, threatening to pull me under. But instead of rushing to me, he hesitated, his expression shifting from urgency to apprehension. As thunder rolled overhead, the light flickered ominously, and I fought a swell of confusion. What's happening? I whispered to the wind, desperate for clarity. I thought I was taking steps towards safety, yet everything felt more precarious with each heartbeat. Alex's small hand grasped mine tightly, grounding me in the chaos as I tried to make sense of the unfolding nightmare. The figures around us were growing closer, their silhouettes bathed in red and blue light, swelling like a storm cloud threatening to break. Mason? My voice came out as a brittle whisper. Just as a panic had begun to swell in my chest, Mason turned, his face a mixture of urgency and conflict, eyes pleading with an unspoken message I couldn't quite decipher. Then I saw a glint of something metallic in his hand, a weapon? The shadows shifted around him, and my heart sank deeper as the realization struck that he wasn't the only one with secrets. What had he done? Run! He yelled, eyes darting in every direction, but his warning was swallowed by a cacophony of chaos, the distant wail of sirens and the pounding of rain. The instinct to flee ignited in me, but it pulled my focus away from Mason, and I shifted, tugging Alex with me, urgency fueling every second that passed, but my heart was heavy with indecision. What about him? Mason! I cried, though the distance grew between us. The urgency in his eyes cut deeper than the storm itself. Then I saw them, figures moving like shadows in the rain, headed toward Mason. My heart dropped at the realization it wasn't just him caught in the storm. Cunning and calculated, they were closing in on us all. I felt a rush of fear surge through me, mingled with a fierce sense of protectiveness for those gathered there. Mommy, I'm scared. Alex quivered beside me, tears mingling with the rain streaming down his cheeks. His fear ignited my resolve, fierce and undeterred. Stay by me, okay? I said, forcing a smile that I didn't quite feel, and yet, there was a flicker of hope in his wide eyes. It was the kind of glimmer I cherished, even as doubt haunted me. Around us, the tempest raged, both nature and man, and I felt caught in devastation between the boy who stirred a fire within me and the ghosts of my past that echoed through the downpour. Desperation clawed at the edges of my mind. Who was I really protecting if my past was now alive and threatening to swallow us whole? I'll find you. Mason shouted again, throwing words over the distance, urgency laced in his voice as he faced the encroaching threat. His resolve was like a beacon, cutting through the storm. Yet even as I fought the cold dread enveloping my heart, his words felt fragile, reliant on the whims of fate. In that moment, a decision crystallized in my mind. I turned, pulling Alex along, feeling the warmth of his tiny hand clutch instead of the icy grip of despair there. We can get to the other side of the street, and maybe we'll find a place to hide. I whispered, mostly to myself as if reassuring my hidden fears, but as we began to dart across the slick cobblestones, a loud voice boomed behind us. Stop! You're not going anywhere. We skidded to a halt, hearts pounding as panic bloomed like wildflowers after the rain. I whipped my head back, the rain falling steadily, blurring the figures in the distance. They were no longer just shadows, they were real, their intentions unfurling like storm clouds before a tempest. There's nowhere to run. The voice echoed again, a taunt that felt visceral. I felt it in the marrow of my bones, vibrating. Through meth promise of something chaotic, darker than the storm enveloping us. From my periphery, I could see Mason still standing strong, fists clenched, but surrounded by shadows that danced closer, their faces obscured yet familiar in nature as they took shape. My heart lurched as one of them stepped forward, revealing strikingly intuitive features. Evelyn, a breath whispered through the pouring rain, a name that hung heavily between us like a noose. No! How could this be possible? As the storm intensified, so did my internal struggle, memories washing over me like waves threatening to drown everything I had built anew. Not you, I gasped, breathless, recognition colliding with the fear that gripped my heart. But it was too late. I felt the edge of a truth so deeply buried rise up, a truth that meant throwing everything I knew into complete upheaval. As I stared down the familiar face of my past made real, I felt the weight of what was at stake, heavier than the storm around us. Would they take everything from me again, designating me a prisoner of my own fears? In that split second, more panic swelled within me as the call to fight clashed with the instinct to hide, torn between enduring the chaos or succumbing to it once again. Mason! I cried, catching his eye, a plea carried on the winds of despair, knowing he would do anything to save me. And just as the world around us was about to shatter once again, I recalled the one truth that lingered like an ember within the darkness. No matter the storm, I was still standing. We were still standing. But in that moment of hope, just as the first glimmers of dawn beckoned, the truth crashed around us in the form of an unstoppable tidal wave revealing the cruelest twist of fate yet. Mason, they're not just here for me. The realization hung heavy, palpably a shattering echo of the consequences of the choices we'd made and the price we would be forced to pay. The stakes had risen to a point of no return, and we were all caught within its relentless grasp, struggling for breath. And as I stood there, suspended between fear and a solitary flicker of hope, I could only wonder what would the next chapter hold? The storm raged on, but my heart was frozen in the moment, caught in a whirlwind of dread and awakening truth. I had barely grasped the danger when everything I thought I knew about safety, connection, and the path of my life began to unravel before me like the fraying threads of a tapestry. Mason, they're not just here for me. The words slipped out in a rush, barely audible against the backdrop of the tempest that swallowed our surroundings. Yet those few syllables echoed with the weight of impending doom, everything we had fought against converging into a singular reality. I could feel the air thicken as every pair of eyes turned toward me, the shadows of uncertainty cast over our fragile alliance. Mason, I whispered again, the dread swelling until it became palpable. They're looking for you. Two of the understanding dawned in an agonizing flicker as I sought his face, desperate for reassurance amidst the chaos. You know them? I asked, my voice trembling with a mix of panic and disbelief, each word laden with fear for what this meant for him, for everyone caught within our fragile web. He met my gaze, his eyes stormy, yet holding the flicker of a brave determination, fighting back against the tide of panic with every ounce of energy he had. We can't linger here, he said, speaking through the rattle of thunder rumbling overhead. Whatever happens, we need to get away from them. He gestured toward the approaching figures, their identities cloaked in the pelting rain, but with every pulse of recognition, I felt the chill settle deeper. Mason. A voice behind him, distant yet familiar, carried on the wind. It was Evelyn's again, the tone taunting as if coaxing out the truth woven within us all. You can't protect her any longer. You know what she is, what she was meant to be. A time slowed, beating like war drums between us. I felt my heart lurch, a surge of electricity zipping through my veins. I had somehow carried secrets that were not solely mine to bear, interlacing the fates of everyone around me. You can't trust them. Mason exploded, losing composure as fury bubbled from beneath the surface. A splintering crack sounded as thunder roared, mirroring our own conflict. I grasped Alex's hand tighter, who stood beside me, a still symbol of innocence, and felt the fracture in my resolve deepen. I turned back to Mason, feeling the world closing in as the shadows shrank back into the tempest. But if they get to you first, the thought fragmented through me like shattered glass. No. He shouted, his voice steady, yet I could see the raw emotion pressing against his resolve. We have to stay together. That's the only way. His words clung to me, a lifeline amidst the tumult. They echoed with an urgency the need to hold tight to what little threads of hope we had managed to weave against the storm. I realized then that I couldn't let fear dictate my choices anymore. I had a chance not only to save Mason but every life tangled in this chaos alongside me. We will stand united. The older boy, the one I had seen smirk with empty bravado earlier, finally spoke, stepping forward as if propelled by a newfound sense of purpose. This isn't just about you or the ones you care for. This is about all of us. His words hung heavy in the rain-drenched air, stirring something within. Solidarity emerged as if forged in the fires of conflicts nearly lost, binding us in a quiet understanding. Around us, the shadows hesitated as if taken aback by our resolve, the flicker of weak humanity shining through the storm. The fragmented bonds we had created were stronger than the fear that sought to pull us apart. Alex, I whispered urgently, feeling the depth of everything that had transpired now settle upon him. We need to be brave together, no matter what happens. Will you stand with me? His small face glimmered with understanding, fingers curling instinctively around mine. I'm not scared anymore, he whispered, voice steady as he straightened, finding strength amidst the chaos. Mason stepped closer, igniting a fire of courage that surged through us all. We stand together. No one gets left behind. The intensity in his voice held us tighter than any storm ever could. Together, we echoed in unison. In that fleeting moment, our tiny collective stood firm despite the encroaching waves of despair threatening to engulf us. Just as we prepared to move, Evelyn called out again, her voice slicing through the air, carrying an eerily calm threat. You think you can escape? How foolish! Her confidence twisted the shadows, darkness crawling forward to grip the very essence of our humanity. But I felt the pulse of something greater than fear within me, a steady beat echoing through every word that was spoken. What do you think you can take from us? I challenged, my voice stronger as I took a step forward. You can't steal our trust, our determination. You are the storm, but we are the eye of the hurricane. Gasps echoed through the crowd, surprise lingering alongside the rain as the shadows faltered, shaken by our refusal to hide anymore. I could see Mason's eyes widen with pride, the flicker of a shared past igniting something new, hope, resilience, and the strength of community intertwined. Then, just as the tide seemed to turn in our favor, the storm roared one last to me. A final furious clash of thunder shook the ground beneath our feet. A crack in the sky flared, splitting the darkness and illuminating the path ahead. I squinted against the sudden brightness, searching for clarity as flashes of light danced around us. Now! Mason cried, his voice rising over the chaos, urging us to move. The collective urgency ignited a flame within us, fueling our momentum as we surged ahead. We pounded towards the churning shadows, fueled by a shared purpose, until I glimpsed a way forward, a path to safety, glimmering through the chaos as lightning danced across the sky. With every step, every pulse of energy coursing through our veins, fear began to dissipate in the face of determination. Finally, we burst past the barrier of the storm, into a moment of stillness. The rain slowed, and dim light began to filter through the gray clouds overhead. As we emerged, I felt the bonds of our community weaving tighter than any storm could sever. Mason, I breathed, finally finding my voice amidst the silence. Whatever they think they want, we are more powerful together. If we face everything side by side, we can't just survive, we can reclaim our lives. He met my gaze, a spark illuminating the stormy depths of his eyes, and I realized then, no matter how shadowed my past had felt, I was not alone. In this moment of clarity, surrounded by those standing beside me, I could feel acceptance settling in, a chance at a different kind of future where bonds forged in the flames of adversity could guide us forward. And as the sun began to break free from the clouds, a single promise echoed within me: no matter how fierce the battle became, love, trust, connection, and courage would guide us through. Together, we carried everything that mattered to us into the world ahead. The final light illuminated the horizon, a reminder that even the darkest storms can break to reveal hidden beauty. And in that moment, as we stood together, I knew I was exactly where I needed to be. A life is more than survival, it's a journey we embrace, one heart at a time.